Hello, everyone. Good to see all of you again after a long gap. We are back with yet another episode on anthropology. And specifically speaking, we will discuss biological anthropology in some detail. But keep in mind, our anthropology optional is not just about biology per se, but it is about biological anthropology, where we emphasize more on the applications of these biological aspects to humans, to humanity, right? That's what anthropology is. It's a discipline of infinite curiosity about humans. So that's an important sort of a distinction to keep in mind. So a biology answer isn't necessarily a biological anthropology answer. And one more thing, most of the students probably think that biology portion is going to be taxing, it's going to be slightly challenging, but trust me, that is not the case at all. Biology is in fact quite easy, and in fact a lot of fun as well. And you yourself will realize this thing after watching these videos on the playlist. So in this playlist, we will start from the very basics and try to sort of help you build some interest, and more importantly, help you build a strong foundation when it comes to biological anthropology. So without any further delay, let's get started. What is a cell? See, cell is basically the basic building blocks of life. Okay, basic, that's all. It's a basic building block of life. So for instance, our bodies are made up of many cells. Let's just say a cell is like this. The simplest way, there are many different types of cells. They look they look different as well. Okay, so this is the basics of your cell. Now, a lot of what we are interested in is something that is present within the cells. Okay, something that is present within the cells. Obviously, this is not a, I'm not going to go into what is an animal cell, what is a plant cell, what is eukaryotic, what is prokaryotic. Okay, by the way, what are we going to discuss? Are we interested in animal cells or plant cells? Is man an animal? So if you understand, if you've done basic bio 8th, 9th, you must have heard of a term called animal kingdom. Okay, we are all part of animal kingdom. Okay, animal kingdom. There's a particular classification called Linnaeus classification, in that we all come under animal kingdom. So basically, we're talking about these animal cells. Okay, leave the theory for now. Okay, so this is basically, so let us say this is your animal cell, and within the cell, we are going to have certain things. What is this? What is this boundary called? What are these little organelles called? So this is your mitochondria. Okay, like a pop-up. I'll go into all of these things that we require. Okay, this inside this is something called a nucleus. There is a liquidish sort of a substance that is present between the this wall and between the nucleus. This is called your cytoplasm. At the same time, this particular membrane is called the cell membrane. So that think about this. All living things are actually composed of many cells. There are some species that have only one cell. Forget them. Okay, but for us, there are many cells. The cell is the basic unit of life. Okay, it is a basic unit of life. Now here, within the cell, I have drawn something called the nucleus. This is your nucleus. Within the nucleus, can you see a whole host of X's that I have drawn? These are your chromosomes. So nucleus is a specialized structure in most cells, okay, separated from the rest of the cell by a double layer called a nuclear membrane. Okay, so this is what your chromosome, sort of looks like. So there are two sort of identical, it's basically called sister chromatids. Okay, just look at the structure. We look at what it does. There are so many things to introduce, but just look at what it looks like. Okay, don't burden yourself with understanding everything about chromosome today. We're not going to understand everything about chromosome today. Okay, but I'm just showing you what it looks like. What is the structure like? See, generally you will have two identical sides. Okay, one arm, okay, the upper wala arm is called your P arm, the niche wala is Q arm. The one that is sort of holding these two ends together is called a centromere. And these ends on top are called, I hope you guys remember, from your school days, these are your telomeres. These are sort of protective caps that will come in later. Okay, what exactly? If you sort of magnify this particular portion, and then you sort of, this sort of tightly bound, strings, if you just sort of extend it like this and see, you will notice that this is your sort of long DNA molecule. A long string like DNA molecule formed into a compact structure, okay, That is your DNA molecule. So now what have we introduced? We talked about cell, we talked about nucleus, we talked about the chromosome. Within the chromosome, we have introduced something called the DNA. Okay, deoxy. What is DNA? What does it stand for?
Deoxyribonucleic acid.
Perfect. So at least once in your paper, if you can just mention the full DNA ka full form, that will be great. The rest of it you can just go with DNA. That is sufficient. So okay, so a chromosome contains your telomeres. It contains your P arm, which is generally the shorter arm. You have the Q arm, which is the longer arm. Okay, you have a centromere somewhere in the middle. All of these things. Okay, so picture it like this. Okay, so this is your chromosome. A chromosome is basically an organized package of your DNA, of your DNA molecules, and it is found within the nucleus of your cell. Now, different organisms will have different number of chromosomes. I think, again, these are all school topics, okay? But humans as such, we have a total of 23 pairs of chromosomes, or a total of 46, 23 pairs and 20. The breakup here. So this is exactly what it looks. So I said 23 pairs of chromosomes. Now, if you look at this, this is, in case this is called a chromosome analysis or a karyotype analysis. This is like, you're sort of, it's like a photograph of your chromosomes. If you look, the biggest to the smallest, it will generally be in that particular order. But if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so many of these things till 22. Okay, no 23rd, but this is your 23rd. And here, instead of mentioning as 23, you've given it as X bar Y. So what is that? Now I'll introduce you to something. So there are two different types: autosomes and anybody? Okay.
Allosomes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So what exactly we are saying is that 22 of them of one particular type and 23rd pair is a different type. So 22 pairs of numbered chromosomes, they are called autosomes, and one pair which is called sex chromosomes. Allosomes are also called sex chromosomes. I generally say sex chromosomes. You can say, you can use whatever. So each parent generally contributes one chromosome to each pair. So the offspring will get half of chromosomes from their mother and half from your father. So when I say 23 pairs, you'll get 23 from your mother and you'll get 23 from the father. Does that make sense? We get 23 pairs, 23 from your mother, 23 from your father, both put together. 23 plus 23 equals 46, or 23 pairs. Does that make sense? Any questions? Okay. See, these are the kind of basics. Okay, if these terms are like sort of etched in your mind: autosomes, allosomes, sex chromosome, nucleus, DNA, and a few other terms. Okay, you will not have any problem with subsequent topics in this entire biological anthro. But I've noticed these parts are not generally, especially with the students who generally take test series, but they've either studied by themselves or they've not given enough sort of emphasis to the basics, or from somewhere else. I've noticed that the basics are not strong enough, so you'll have to memorize a lot of things. You don't want to memorize anything, right? These are all sort of it builds on each other. Okay, very, very basic. If you study it, if you've understood it, for the longest duration, you will not have to study many of these topics. You will be able to solve these things at any time. Okay, and that is basically how we want to go about this. Okay, so something about your DNA. So DNA, there is Watson and Crick. Okay, that's what the model is called. I will give you a picture of it. So in 1953 Feb, these guys basically, for the model that they had sort of shown, double helix structure of the DNA, they actually get big awards. Okay. Now, this DNA, or the deoxyribonucleic acid, is basically the chemical name for the molecule, okay, that contains your genetic instructions. Okay, so DNA contains your genetic instructions. What does DNA do? DNA contains your genetic instructions. Hope that is clear. Okay, so again, if I want to go back here, okay, let's just take a, is everybody following so far? Okay, good. See, Again, let's come back to evolution. Why are we studying this bio? Because we followed till Darwin, but post Darwin, we have to know a little more, right? So evolution may Lamarck didn't know about all of these. Darwin didn't know about all of these. This is like pretty much like almost 97 years, 93 years, something like that, right? 94 years, after he had written his Otus on the origin of, species. So that is a long, long time later. So he also didn't know. Okay, Mendel, another important person, he also did not know about all of these things. But eventually, what has happened? For us to understand the post-Darwin explanations of evolution, we have to know all of these other topics because these are new sort of ideas that have come about. Okay, which help us understand it better. So again, go back to the whole thing. We have a cell. Inside the cell, we said we have a nucleus. Inside the nucleus, we said we have chromosomes. Okay, this is what your chromosome looks like. There's centromere, your P, you have your telomeres, you have a centromere, whatever it is. Okay, forget that. Within this, if you just take a particular strand, that is going to be your DNA strand, double helix structure, right? So this DNA molecule is going to contain two different strands. Okay, I'm going to show you these things, so many different times that, it'll be in your memory. Okay, so don't worry about so many of these things. Just pay attention. Okay, just try to understand. So it is going to contain two strands, this strand and this particular strand. Okay, now they are sort of, they are binding around each other, and this particular structure or this particular shape is called your double helix structure. So each of these strands, it has a backbone, and that backbone, this is the backbone. Okay, so this is the backbone. It is made up of what? If you go even further in, you will notice that it is made up of two different sort of things, which is your sugar or the deoxyribose, and then there will be a phosphate element as well. Okay, so forget that. So this is made of what? The strand is made of a couple of things. It's called the backbone. So attached to each of these, more importantly, is the four bases. And this is something that you may have heard of: A, T, C, G. Adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. Okay, in the next slide, I'll explain it. So the two strands here that are held together by certain bonds, okay, between these bases. So here, let us say this might be my A, and this will be my T. This might be my C, this will be my G. A, T, C, G, and these are connected by bonds, okay, hydrogen bonds. Those things are not important, but anyways, I'm giving you some extra gyan. So the sequence of these bases, okay, from C, A, T, whatever it is, okay, A, T, C, G, A, T, C, G, A, T, C, G, whatever the sequence is, these serves as the instruction, okay, the genetic instructions for doing whatever job it is supposed to do. So does that make sense? Finally, we have come to the DNA. Within the DNA, we are talking about four bases, A, T, C, G. These are the bases with different colors. The sequence of this base, these bases are the ones that are going to be, you can call them the genetic instructions. Is that clear? Again, we'll see this multiple times. So A for adenine, T for thymine, G for guanine, C for cytosine. Okay, so these are your base pairs, and these are connected through what? They're connected through your hydrogen bonds. Double bond, triple bond, things of that nature. Okay, so we have DNA here that we're discussing. There's something called RNA. We'll talk about that later. Okay, not so important at the moment. Okay, so I'm giving you like all different views, one side view, one straight view, one with a nitrogenous basis, so many different things, so that now it is like what is the DNA. You know that something like this is there. Maybe you have a T-shirt with this particular double helix structure. It does not matter, but now you understand how exactly is it, what exactly is this. This is called a strand, this is called the nitrogenous basis, or adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, things of that nature. Again, so we had a cell. Inside that cell, we had a nucleus. Within the nucleus, we have the chromosome. Within the chromosome, we talked about sister chromatids, Q arm, P arm, centromere, telomere, all of those. And then we also said that this is actually, a tightly wound DNA molecule. So if you sort of magnify this, pull this out like this is how it is going to look. Okay, A, T, C, G, A, T, C, G, A, T, C, G. So if I just, this particular part, if I draw, okay, I sort of unwind this double helix structure like a ribbon. And if I draw this, it will be something like this: ATCG, ATCG, ATCG. This is the sequence. And these sequences are sort of important because they are the genetic instructions, right? These are the genetic instructions. Now I've introduced so many things. Now finally, I'm going to introduce on this particular slide something called gene. Now gene is something that you must have all heard. Gene. Okay, what is a gene? See, gene, within your DNA molecule, there are segments here that make up your gene. So let us say ATCG, ATCG, this side of a combination for a certain amount. Okay, that is going to be your gene 1. And from here till here in the DNA molecule, that is going to be your gene 2. Okay, from this particular point to this particular point, it could be your gene 3. So within your chromosome, you have a DNA molecule that is like this, and within that, there are certain segments, each of which will be a separate gene. Does that make sense? There is something called the Human Genome Project. I think many of you may have heard of it, right? In that Human Genome Project, we're sort of mapping the genes and all of that. Before, we used to think that, we have billions of genes in our body, but it then turns out we have approximately, I'm not giving you the right number, around 25,000. Okay, around 25,000, 30,000, something like that number of genes in us. And where are they? Within your cell, there are chromosomes. Within the chromosomes, there is a DNA molecule. In that DNA molecule, there are certain segments which make up your genes. Clear? I hope so. So what is a gene? So gene, just write down, gene is the basic unit of inheritance. You'll never have to write this, okay, in your paper. Okay, these are like such basics from our school days that you should just know what it does, okay, not the definitions or those elements, okay. And you're going to see this so many times that conceptually you'll be very clear. Today it might be an overload, but it'll be very clear for you, okay. So basic unit of inheritance. You say, right, sometimes, oh, bad genes, oh, good genes, right? What is that? That is your unit of inheritance, because you've inherited something from the previous generation. So you're saying good genes or bad genes, right? So according to HGP, approximately 20 to 30,000 genes. Just keep this in mind just in case, even for prelims, these sort of concepts will be very handy. A few questions, at least 3-4 questions, you can easily solve. 5 questions, approximately 10 marks at least you will get because of your anthro and your basic bio. So before you go into your prelims, please do not forget to revise your basics of anthro, basics of your biological anthro. Okay, so again, you don't have to write this entire history. It is not important at all. Okay, but the concept is sort of important. Again, so if I go back to explaining this once again, you have a particular cell. Within the cell, you have a nucleus. Within the nucleus, we have chromosomes. If I magnify this, okay, you have a particular chromosome. Okay, this is how the chromosome looks. And within the chromosome, you have, what is this? Your DNA molecule. If I magnify this, I am going to have something like this. And this is the double helix structure of this DNA molecule, and which I mentioned that the segments of this will be your gene 1 or gene 2 and gene 3s and gene 4s. Okay, and these genes are the ones that show the sort of inheritance. Okay, again I will tell you, within a cell you have a nucleus ke andar you have chromosome ke andar you have these what do you call this, chromosome magnified, and within that, if you unbind this particular thing, you will see a DNA molecule, and within that DNA molecule, if you magnify that, you will see it in this particular form. What are these? ATCG, ATCG. What is this? These are your 2 strands, right? These are your strands made up of what? Deoxyribose and phosphate and all of that we just talked about. This one, different segments of this make up different genes. Okay, good. Okay, so we have talked about gene. The next thing we are going to talk about, the next new term that I have to introduce, is something called allele. Okay, is something called allele. What is an allele? Allele is basically a variant of a gene. Okay, in terms of a definition, I don't know what its definition is, but this is what we studied in school. Okay, many of these things I remember from school itself. What is an allele? It is a variant of a gene. The idea here is you have to understand its meaning. Okay, you will never have to define what is an allele in your paper. but you have to understand how it works. Where exactly is it there? And so there are many things about allele, and I introduce you to so many things. Okay, so these are all of these things you're going to see 100 times in this biological anthro paper. Remember, the most important thing is it is a variant of a gene. It is a variant of a gene. Okay, so meaning, again, this is the history element, not important. Look at this. One gene will have two variants. Okay, one gene will have one particular train. I'll give you an example. You have a particular gene for, and this is a very simplistic model. Okay, in fact, there are many genes that make up a color. Okay, let us say you have brown hair, black hair, blonde hair, whatever it is. Assuming that we have a gross oversimplification, we say one gene is going to result in a particular trait. That gene will have two variants. Let us say capital D is dark and lowercase d is light. Okay, this is for skin color. Okay, let's say this is an example for skin color, skin tone. Oh no, we said hair, right? We'll just call it skin tone. And again, this is a gross oversimplification. This is not true. There are many genes that result in your color, and plus there is an important component of environment also. But let's say this is this. So let us say there are two. So every gene will have, in humans, two variants. So let us say the options can be this kind of a variance of your gene. Let us say one of you has capital D, where I say capital D is dark and lowercase d is light. Some of you may have this kind of a combination, meaning you got one capital D and one small d. Some of you may have this kind of a combination. Does that make sense? And lowercase d stands for light. Okay, so if I just have to say something here, it means this guy will tend to be darker. Genetically, he has been given more of darker sort of shades. This particular person is going to be a lot lighter. Does that make sense? Just stop me if you need to, because I understand that these are concepts. You know, sometimes I know this too well. Just think about whether you have understood it. A gene is basic. Sorry, an allele is a variant of a gene. The best definition. Okay, variant of a gene. Humans. Okay, we have one gene, two variants. So we are saying one gene is going to decide one particular trait or code for a particular trait, and that trait is going to be your skin color or skin tone. So two variants. So for that particular gene, you can either have a capital D, and if we say capital D is your dark, that means you're going to be darker. And lowercase d represents light variant of that particular gene. So if you've been given lowercase d from your parents, then that means you're going to be of a lighter shade. I hope that is clear. Okay, the next term that I'm going to introduce to you is something called genotype. Genotype. Genotype is allele combination. Again, from your school days. I'm guessing most of you will remember these things. Okay. Allelic combination. What is a genotype? It means allelic combination. So meaning we just talked about different combinations. So you could have a capital D. You could have one capital D, lowercase d of either of these, or you can have lowercase d. All of these things are different combinations. So what are these? These are the three different types of genotypes. These are the three different types of genotypes. Does that make sense? Genotype means allelic combination, capital D, lowercase d, capital D, lowercase d. Within this, I'm going to introduce three different terms, which is your homozygous, and another one is heterozygous, right? Homo means same, hetero means sort of different. So having inherited the same alleles for a particular gene from both parents, so that will be an example. So you're inheriting the same alleles, same variants of a gene. So this could be your capital D, or it could be lowercase d. Homozygous, right? Homo means same. So capital D, lowercase d. If I say heterozygous, that means it is going to be capital D, lowercase d, or lowercase d, capital D. Both are the same, basically. Both are the same. But I'm just listing it out for you. So having inherited different forms of a particular gene from each parent. So again, we have introduced a few more terms. Genotype, homozygous, heterozygous. Okay. So let us say this is like a chromosome. Okay, and there are different combinations here. So let us say in this particular combination, you have a capital B for a particular gene. These are the alleles, or capital B is your genotype. Okay, capital B, lowercase b, or lowercase b, capital B, or lowercase b. These are the other sort of genotypes. This and this are going to be your homozygous. Because why? Same. Whereas if you get this sort of a combination, that means it is heterozygous. As of now, you can at least say that this particular trait is going to be dark color. This particular trait is going to be light color. Although it should have been capital D and lowercase d. Okay. Okay, but this particular picture has capital B. Just imagine it as capital D, lowercase d. Okay, so this is your homozygous genotype. This is going to be your heterozygous genotype, homozygous genotype. Okay, these two things, after we discuss Mendel, I'll come to it. Okay, so let's get to Mendel. Okay, so before Mendel, it is hard to talk about this. Now, I talked to you about color, skin tone. I'm going to talk to you about, let's say, eye color. Okay, eye color. Now, this is called a Punnett square. Okay, Punnett square generally you do not see in Indian books. Even in our school days, we used to draw something like this, which you guys may all remember. Something like this. Okay, but Punnett square is something that you generally see in foreign author books, and I'm a huge proponent of using better presentation. Better presentation equals better marks. Really, really true it is. Okay, not many people will believe it, but definitely it is true. Okay, how exactly do you go about doing this? Let us say I say you have your father. Your father is going to, let's take this particular example. Your father is heterozygous. Okay, and your mother is going to be also heterozygous. Basically, this is your father. Okay, father is represented like this, mother is represented like this, so male and female. So what are the combinations you could get? Capital B from the father and capital B from the mother. Okay, lowercase b from the father, capital B from the mother. And here what will you have? Capital B from the father and lowercase b from the mother. And here you will have lowercase b from the father and lowercase b from the mother. Okay, and if you look at this particular combination, let us say these are 4 different children with 4 different sort of a genotype. What is a genotype? Allelic combination. So capital B is going to result in, so how have they defined it? Capital B is brown eyes. Okay, lowercase b is blue eyes. So this is going to be brown eyes, and this is going to be blue eyes. Okay, and what you can do is play with many different sort of combinations. Many different sort of combinations. Father is like this, mother is like this. What are the kind of combinations? Right? Now, one more thing I'll introduce even before we get to Mendel is there is something called dominant and recessive. Dominant and recessive. Dominant basically is represented by capital, and this is by lowercase letter. Now, dominant means if there is a dominant and there is a recessive, dominant is basically going to dominate over whatever the other one is. So if I put capital B and B, the trait is going to be the dominant ones. It is going to dominate over lowercase b. If it is capital D, lowercase d, it is going to dominate over the lowercase d. It is going to be this trait. So here, let's look at these two. Sorry, capital B, lowercase b. So what will be here? It is going to be the trait of capital B or brown eyes. Okay, again, once you come to Mendel, you will see a lot more of this thing. So remember, part of the genetic material is coming from the mother, which is this combination. Part of the genetic material is coming from the father, which is this combination. So each child that we have drawn here is going to get one from the father and one from the mother. One allele from the father and one allele from the mother. So I hope this is not, this is very, very clear. A lot of new terms introduced, but very, very simple concepts. Okay, it is best to go with simplicity here. Mitosis, meiosis. We'll come to mitosis and meiosis. Okay, mitosis and meiosis. Maybe I'll introduce mitosis and meiosis. The basics of mitosis and meiosis, just for the heck of it, I'll just tell you. We'll look at it in more detail. Mitosis and meiosis. See, both of these things are two different forms of cell division. Two different forms of cell division. We said that our cells are going to be 23 pairs. Let us say, I don't want to write 23 separately, it's going to be too much. What if I say n equals 23? Okay, 23 pairs. So humans, we are going to be 2 into 23 or 2n. Mitosis basically, just cell division, it basically gives you 2 copies of the same. This is one form of cell division. It is one form of cell division. So basically what have I done? 46 go. We have done it as 46 and 46. Meiosis, on the other hand, it has 2 steps that it goes through. Okay, so if I give you 2n, simplicity ke liye, I'll make it like this for now. It eventually gives you halves, 4 halves. So what will this be? This will be 46, and these things are going to be 23, 23, 23, 23. Now you understand, this is for sexual reproduction. This is sort of important. You know why? We said 23 will come from your father and 23 will come from your mother. So this is that 23 from, one parent, and there'll be another such 23 coming from your another parent. Does that sort of make sense? Okay, so that is that. Now, what is a gamete? There are 2 things basically for you guys to know. There is something called gamete and there is something called zygote. Are you guys aware of this? Gamete basically is, let us say, n, half from your father and half from your mother. Both of these things are your gametes. Sorry, let me put this in a better form. Oish. Can I do a control C? Nope. I hope you guys have noted that down. Okay, so I'm going to introduce something called gametes. So gametes are basically like this. From your father and one from your mother. And once they fertilize, okay, this is father, let us say, and this is your mother. Half from your father, half from your mother, resulting in what? 2n. Okay, so this will be, so this is the science behind it. But how do we see it? This is the sperm. This is the father, right? The father is allowing the sperm to enter the woman. Okay, so you have this entire machinery here, the genitalia. Okay, you have the penis, you have the testicles. From there, testes will produce the sperm. The sperms are going to produce that N. Okay, and that N with the mother's egg. Okay, the egg comes in during which time period in the menstrual cycle? On the 14th day during ovulation. So this two come together and they form this. And once they fertilize, so यहाँ पे fertilize लिख लेता हूँ मैं. Okay, that results in zygote. So do you understand what is a gamete and a zygote? All school stuff, okay? But this is a refresher. So that is your gamete and this is your zygote. So gametes are N. Zygotes are 2N. It also has, so 2N is equal to what? Can I also put it as 46? Can I put this as 23? There are 2 new terms here. It is called haploid, okay, which contains only half of the chromosomes, total number of chromosomes we generally have, whereas then we have called diploid. Diploid means the entire set. So remember, how do you remember this? Di means 2 and hap or half. Okay, so this is called haploid, this is called diploid. This is your gamete, this is your zygote. Hope that is clear. So that is your zygote. So now what happens? Take a look at this human. This guy is going to produce what? So his body is made up of 2n, her body is made up of 2n. But what happens is this guy is going to contribute sperm on the day when she's ovulating, the 14th day in her menstrual cycle. So she, from her ovary, right, there is going to be an egg that breaks out of the ovary and it enters the fallopian tube. And so in that fallopian tube, this particular cell is going to meet your sperm. Sorry, the sperm is going to meet the egg and they're going to fertilize. And then what happens? It becomes 2n. And once you have 2n, so your sperm, her egg, okay, his sperm, her egg come together, form 2n. But with 2n, you cannot have a baby, right? When you go for ultrasound, you see a small peanut-sized, little thing. But eventually, you have to become a full human. So for that, what do you have to do? This 2n has to keep expanding. How will it keep? So for that, it is going to just do more and more. How do you produce more? Through mitosis. Again, this will again go through mitosis. It'll be 2n, 2n, the same thing. It'll keep producing two copies, and eventually at a point where they have many. And then they produce humans like this. This human will find another girl like her, and then he'll produce the sperm, she'll produce the egg, and then they will, and so on. So this is your, so I'm just connecting all of these topics. Okay. What are somatic cells and what are germ cells? Anybody? Whereas germ cells are your sperm and egg cells. So this particular group is for sexual reproduction. Of course, we all know what is sperm, what is egg, right? Maybe the machinery behind it, you may not remember. I think it is 8th class bio or 9th class bio, but again, we'll take a look at it. But you know that there is sperm, there is egg, and they both have to come together for sexual reproduction to form the offspring. Whereas the other cells, okay, that are in your body, those things make up your somatic cells. Okay, somatic cells, internal organs. Okay, great. Okay, so I think we have another couple of minutes. We'll just cover last. So Mendel, we'll take a look at in the next session. Okay, so somatic cells. Just note on what is somatic cell. It is any cell of the body except for your sperm and egg cells. Somatic cells are diploid. They are 2n. Whereas your germ cells are not going to be that. What, and I will explain. You will probably know it by now. Okay. In germ cells, it is basically your egg and sperm. Okay, used by sexually reproducing organism. It will be n, not 2n, or haploid. So that two of these things can come together and produce 2n. So n from the mother, n from the father, both come together, fertilize, and it is going to form 2n. This is the little baby that has been formed, or aka zygote. And these are gametes. Okay, now the zygote is going to go through mitosis, and from 2n it is going to be 2n into a million. Okay, many into a million or whatever number of cells that you have in your body, and then eventually you form a full-blooded person. So now, again, just to summarize, we talked about creationism, the initial idea about, evolution. Then biologically, we became a little more aware. So pre-Darwin or Lamarck, and then we came through Darwin, and post-Darwin, we said two things. One is bio, You have to learn more bio, which we have. I think most of 90% of the bio that you need for this entire syllabus is done. 90% of it is actually done. And then you have to know what Mendel's contributions are. So Mendel, we'll take a look at the next one so that we can look at the major topic, which is your post-Darwinian theories. Any questions? Hope you guys are finding a biological anthropology playlist useful for your preparation. Hope this video helped reinforce your basics and also helped you connect a little better with the applications. If there's any other aspect of anthropology that you would like to know more about, do let us know in the comment section and we will try to make videos on those as well. Thank you for watching and we will see you in the next video.